I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Now, here are your two Mad Radio Network hosts, Mark Weiss and Doug Gladstone.
Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you all doing?
Boy, I'll tell you, that never gets old.
No, it doesn't get old, and it's amazing. Week 5, I mean, we're in week 5. We've got a great show tonight. Obviously, Douglas J. Gladstone, author extraordinaire, my partner in crime, is with me. We've got the Stenhouse boys. We've got Papa and we got son Mike in the house with us today. They'll be joining in about 15 minutes, which I think is great for us to have those guys on board, and we'll talk a lot about baseball and especially Boston baseball. Those guys. By the way, Douglas, do they have those Boston accents, or do they kind of like not have that stuff going on?
You know, I only met Dave once in Rhode Island at a Barnes & Noble there, and it really wasn't very pronounced. It wasn't a pronounced accent. I mean, you don't have Jimmy Fallon doing Pak the Cod, Harvard Yard. You don't have that. But, I mean, Stenhouse Jr., actually, I've never met Stenhouse Jr. Dave Stenhouse has two boys, Mike and Dave Jr., who got as far as the Syracuse Sky Chiefs, which, of course, next year becomes the AAA affiliate of the New York Mets. But I've never heard Stenhouse Jr. speak. As for Michael, no, there's no pronounced accent at all.
Interesting. So I wanted to take a little bit of kind of like a little break from what we normally do, because obviously we normally have our guests on in the beginning and we start chatting with them right off the bat. So Dave and Mike will probably be on in 10 or 15 minutes. If not, Douglas will be calling them up and trying to find out what's going on and where they're at, which is great. But I wanted to bring up and talk about something today, which, you know, we try to be upbeat. We really do. It's like it's important to us to be upbeat and have a good time with the show and all good things like that. But I think it's really important for us to actually talk about something that happened 39 years ago today, and that was the untimely passing of the great Yankee captain Thurman Munson. Thurman Munson, I mean, I'm going to sound gushy about this when I'm saying he was number 15 in the Yankee program, but he was number 1 in Yankee fans' hearts. And even if you weren't a Yankee fan, a Dodger fan myself, watched those 2 World Series where the Yankees beat us, you could never hate this guy, because this guy went out and he gave blood, sweat, and tears every single day on the field. And he died because he was practicing takeoffs and landings on a high-powered plane that he bought, because he wanted to be able to get home to his family on his off days. And I think, you know, when the day's done, it's all about family, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to just jump in. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I really can't believe it was 39 years ago. I was out in, for those of you who are familiar with the Long Island area, I was out in Roslyn playing a softball game, and both teams, because I was with a camp softball team, and our opponents, we literally we cried. And after the game, and I don't remember who won, but we were all in tears, because a little friendly softball game suddenly obviously takes a back burner to real life. And this was a truly in the pantheon of great 70s catchers in the American League. You know, you can say the 70s started out with Bill Freehan, and then you had Carlton Fisk, and people kind of forget Thurman Munson. And you know, I grew up with the Yankees of the Horace Clarke and Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich and Doc Medich generation. So I didn't really appreciate Thurman until his best years were behind him. And, you know, he was the soul of that Yankee team. He was, correct me if I'm wrong, because you have a better handle on him, he was the MVP in '75, and I know the Reds and Sparky were petrified of him. That was the one batter, and the Reds swept the Yankees in '75, but that was the one batter to a man that all the Red pitchers feared in the 1975 World Series. And my iconic memory of Thurman Munson, I forget who he blasted the home run off of. It might have been Paul Splitoff or Dennis Leonard in the '78 playoff, but all I remember was that weakened, I don't want to call him crippled, but by that time his back problems were pretty pronounced. He put a ball 436 feet past the monument in the old Yankee Stadium. A 436-foot home run. I know our listeners who are Yankee fans will probably remember which pitcher he hit it off, but that was my favorite Thurman Munson memory growing up. And then less than a year later, the poor man dies.
You know, I don't have a specific memory of him playing. I do. You're absolutely right, though. Won the MVP in '75, and in '76, he had over 500 in the World Series, but he still wasn't the best catcher in the World Series. That was that bench guy. He was pretty darn good himself.
Yeah, he might have been.
Yeah, he might have been. He wound up being the MVP. But you know what? For a 10-year period, there was nobody better than Thurman Munson out there. There really wasn't. And even if you were a Yankee fan or a Yankee hater, you didn't hate that guy. He was a competitor. And you know what? When Reggie came over the next year, Thurman was the captain, and yet he had to suck up a lot to deal with Reggie's ego, which was big enough to pretty much take up not only the whole clubhouse, but the whole outfield that the Yankees had in Death Valley was pretty big back then. And
wasn't that the famous, Mark, wasn't that the famous spring training where Reggie basically says, and I know he blames it on the Sports Illustrated writer who wrote the article, didn't he say words in effect that, you know, Munson thinks he's the straw that stirs the drink, but he can only stir it bad? Was that year?
That's exactly what he was with Sport Magazine. And then when he was asked to apologize, he said he was misquoted. And you want to know something? Reg, you can't be misquoted when it was a 4-page article.
Right.
I mean, it was one misquote after another, I guess, but that's the kind of guy Reggie was. He loved the attention. He loved the limelight. He really wasn't a bad guy. But the longer you talk, as we know in this business, you're bound to say something that's either stupid, embarrassing, or incriminating. And that's what happened to Reggie in that case. That's exactly what happened to him. And it didn't ingratiate Reggie one bit to the Yankee fans, considering the fact that Thurman Munson was the heart and soul of the Yankees. We got Mike Menino wants to come on video, and I'm just going to see if we can throw him on here because Mike wants to tell a Reggie story. We'll give you like 2 minutes, Mike, and so let's see if we can get you on screen. We haven't heard from Mike in about 2 weeks, so that'd be great. So, we're just trying to pop him up on here, and, we'll see if that works. Sometimes the technology does. Sometimes it doesn't. But while we're doing that, I'll tell you quickly how I found out Thurman Munson passed away. I was 13 years old. I lived in Canarsie, Brooklyn. I was collecting the money for my newspaper route. And one of the kids was watching TV in his house, and he opened up his window and he screams out, "Diamond Munson died! Diamond Munson died!" And I'm like, "Go back in your house, you idiot. Stop with the stupidity." He goes, "No, he did." I ran up to his house and we saw it on the news. And back then, it wasn't like today where you have a million channels on cable. Oh, Mike Menino. What's going on, Mike?
What's up? How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Hit us with your Thurman story.
Actually, the Thurman story that I found very interesting was Diane. She tried suing the company that sold or gave Thurman the license to fly just so that they could sell on the plane. And have the book in front of me where I read it, but I don't know how long the suit went on for. But they finally, they never won. But yeah, she felt that he wasn't ready for the plane, and even Upinella, when he saw, I think him and Bobby Mercer, they saw Thurman take that final flight from the runway, and they saw the cockpit, they saw the engine, they just saw the whole plane, and they were like, wow, this is big. This doesn't look like something he could handle. But they said Thurman, was very thick-headed, and he's, I could do it, and and actually when the plane crashed, he was still alive. He was burning up inside, and they tried to pull him out, but it was just too late. So out of that book that I read, that was just, to me, that was the most amazing part of the book, because all the Yankee specials that I've seen, they don't talk about that. They just talk about the crash, and that's it. And Bobby Mercer gave her that bat when he hit the game-winning RBI. The double, yeah. And she had that bat for so many years, and then they finally said, you know what, sell it at an auction and, give it to your kids to use for college or something like that. But, yeah, that's my story.
All right. So I'm just gonna X you out over here, so this way. And there we go. So I just wanted to thank you, Mike, for that story. I heard everything in Mike's story except for the lawsuit part. I remember hearing that Piniella and Mercer were both saying this jet plane is way too much. Like the prop planes he can handle, but the jet plane was just way too much for him. And, right, sometimes thick-headed is what makes you a great captain and a great player. Now we're going to try to add George, because George might have a story to tell us too. And let's see if we can get George on camera. If not, well, we try. I want
to add one thing, that years later, Jorge Posada, he was flying a Cessna Citation, and people were like jumping ugly with him. They go, well, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing? Of all the private planes you're going to pick to, no one begrudges you the right to go back and forth and visit your kids and your wife. But that plane, do you know what it means in Yankee lore?
Yeah, that's bizarre. You know who else was a big proponent of flying to events and going places? In fact, he used to fly to every tournament he played in, Arnold Palmer. Up until well into his 80s. Wow. He would fly to every tournament, and he flew jet planes. He was very gifted in doing that, and he just didn't want to fly commercial. I guess when you're Arnold Palmer, you can't get a moment of peace, and you can understand that. But yeah, I mean, I get it too. So,
hey, listen, the Stenhouse has just told me that they cannot get through for some reason.
All right, let me try something over here and see if we can get the Stenhouses through, because let's face it, if we can't get the Stenhouses in there, we don't have as a show.
This week's show is brought to you by McCurdy Mortgage of Danville, Georgia. At McCurdy Mortgage, the customer always receives preferential attention from consultation to closing. With one of the highest referral and repeat customer ratios in the industry, McCurdy Mortgage has earned this loyalty not just from low rates, but through integrity, professionalism, accountability, reliable communication, and a smooth, no-surprises process. Just call the company today at 770-213-8530 to discover for yourself why they promise your first transaction with them will not be your last. That's 770-213-8530. McCurdy Mortgage. They want to be your mortgage broker for life. And now back to Mark and Doug.
We're back, and we actually have our guests with us right now. So we have Dave Stenhouse, distinguished career with the Washington Senators, and we have son Mike, who played with the, see if I get this right, Mike. First you were a superstar at Harvard University, two-time All-American, and then you were with the Montreal Expos, then the Minnesota Twins, and then you finally got a chance to play with the Red Sox. Did I get that right?
You got it perfect.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the show, guys. Any
Thank
friends
you.
of Mr. Gladstone's a friend of the show?
That means we don't have a lot of friends. I think it's you, me, and the two staff.